Oh, I too, I hear people say we need to go back to the good old days. Well, now, what are the
What does
good
that
old
mean?
days? Yeah. You, I mean, I grew up, I can remember growing up in my hometown, there were still houses out there that didn't have indoor plumbing.
Sure.
Okay. Went outside to use the toilet, the outhouses, and so forth.
I was trying to explain to the kids the other day what an ice box is.
Yes, that's funny. That it is a funny one.
Because I remember growing up, I'd heard you use that term sometimes. Ice box makes sense, but that's what a refrigerator is. That's where refrigerators came from. Before you had electricity, what'd you use?
Yeah, we had a little cabin out there on a lake near us, and when I first remember it was Dad would always, as we were driving out there, would stop at an ice house and get big block ice and put that in there. Eventually, a few years later, he did buy an older ice box or an older refrigerator. Okay, and put in there finally. Okay, so but yeah.
So the ice industry didn't. I watched something where they used to have to cut gigantic blocks of ice out of like northern Canada and ship them. I mean, it was a whole.
I don't know. That's interesting.
There was a whole industry devoted to that.
Well,
obviously, you cut giant blocks of ice and you ship them quick, and then people, I'd never thought of it, right?
Yeah. Well, when your grandfather, he lived in Brainerd, Nebraska. He was a carpenter, and he came over from Czechoslovakia in about 1902.
Okay.
Somewhere in there. But I remember Dad took us back one time to
Wait,
Brainerd.
did you say? So Grandpa Frank came over, or no, his dad?
His dad. I'm my grandfather.
Yes, okay.
Your great grandfather.
Got it.
Okay. And his name was Sylvester.
Sylvester. That's what I was going to say.
But anyway, my dad took us, my brother and my sister and myself, and took us to where he grew up in Brainerd.
Okay.
The thing that amazed me about it was basically self-sufficient.
Yeah.
They had a pond out there in the wintertime. They cut blocks of ice and put it. They had an ice house where they store used for the summer. They had a cellar where they kept vegetables and so forth. But they had a big garden. They raised their own animals. Okay, and slaughtered them. And it was. This is. Anyway, and there wasn't. When they slaughtered an animal, it wasn't very little they didn't take advantage of.
Sure.
Okay. The intestines became the part of sausages.
Of course, yeah.
The stuff. I mean, that's the way it was, but they were basically self-sufficient. They didn't rely on grocery stores or anything like that.
Which, unfortunately, is just simply not the case today.
That's right.
Right? If this is what I try to impress upon people, as I believe, we're far more susceptible to a major catastrophe than we realize. Like we're I forget what word I'm trying to find here, but if something catastrophic were to happen today, like let's say a couple years ago when the whole electric grid of Texas basically shut down for a week or two, whenever that was, right? That was a wake-up call, because that was Texas froze over, which relatively speaking, they don't have any, they're not concerned with cold weather, right? That was a wake-up call here. It's like, if that happens and there's no food at Hy-Vee, you can't go down to the grocery store and grab anything. Those shelves are empty. I don't know how to garden. I don't have any backup supplies.
And Texas was warned about this.
For sure.
Operating system was warned that a lot of their equipment did not have freeze protection, a lot of their generating equipment. They were warned about that, but nothing was done, or very little was done, and so that's the consequences of that. It seems like...
I don't think they've changed much either.
No, it seems like before we act, something major has to happen just to get things going again.
Yeah, there has to be a dramatic, eye-opening moment where you can't argue the truth any longer. Right? So that's my question when it comes to big things of controversy like climate change, right? If there's climate change deniers that are still just, I don't believe it, the planet's warming on its own, human contribution, etc. What is the thing that would get them to realize, we collectively need to develop some willpower to make a change, right? I don't know if we're going to come across that. Like, does a hurricane the size of a hemisphere have to move over where they live, and then even then, I don't think, like, does it have to be 110 degrees in February in Alaska first, right? Like, what is the thing that needs to change their mind, right?
Yeah.
Like if an alien ship landed on their front yard, came out, grabbed them, took them, and blasted off to a new galaxy, Flight of the Navigator style or something. I don't know if you remember that movie. That was from 1988 or something like that. We watched that in grade school.
Oh,
it was a
did
cool
you?
one. Yeah. A kid trips and falls, gets picked up by an alien ship. It's a real likable alien life form ship. It's the ship itself that's alive, and takes this kid to a whole nother galaxy of some kind, right? They're only gone a few hours. But of course, when he comes back and drops the kid off, everybody's aged by, 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, or something like that. So then they try to read, that's what the whole movie's based on. Cool movie, kid movie. But yeah, that's what it would take, I guess, to convince others that, hey, these types of things, like, that's my whole question with climate change is what's the event?
It's slowly changing people's minds, though, because you're starting to see some pretty drastic changes in weather. So it's slowly, but you're
That's the
always
problem.
you're
Slowly.
always that's
Slowly.
exactly right.
Right.
That's right. So you're always going to have people that are skeptical and won't, and so
Sure.
forth. But and then of course now with the government really pushing renewables and pushing electric vehicles, okay, that opens up another issue with electric vehicles. For me, at least, the amount of minerals that are going to be needed.
Sure.
Nickel, copper, lithium, and
I think it's lithium. Have you seen the lithium mines? The videos of the lithium mines in Africa?
I read some articles
It's
on
appalling.
them, yes.
It's
Yeah,
unbelievable.
It is.
It's
It
what
is,
you
yeah.
the major corporations, Apple, just who are the major, like Microsoft, Apple, Dell, any company that's associated with the smart devices. It's basically slavery conditions to mine these fields, right? Dangerous, but these companies are sitting on hundreds of billions of dollars. They could change. They could make the changes necessary, right?
I just don't know. And then you look at what nations control a lot of this. China's a big one.
Sure.
Okay. So that's something that's we gotta worry about is China, and their control of other. They're very active now in Africa.
Of course,
where a lot
they're
of
active
the
here.
Interactive. Yeah, well, that's true too. Yeah.
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 They've got a lot of investment. I mean, I don't know the details. Like they invest a lot in Africa. Good for them. They also invest in, what was it I saw where they own certain rights to water systems in the southeast or the southwest, to where
I don't know.
Yeah, read up on that one, where communities are lacking water, right? Like completely lacking water, and I think it's the aquifers are the term, where the rights to the access to those aquifers are to Chinese organizations. And those Chinese organizations, they basically are taking the water out from these communities, and it's because, somehow China has the rights to it in our country.
Wow. No, I hadn't heard anything on that.
I'll have to follow up on that one for you.
I mean, we're doing a good enough job ourselves draining out our aquifers. Nebraska, Kansas, that underground aquifer there is one of the largest in the world, and we're using it up. So, because what you take out, you can't replenish that quickly. Nature can't do that. So.
The basic access to water, it will be more and more of a concern. I gotta believe that we'll crack the code to desalination. Doesn't it seem like the more important it becomes, the more valuable it becomes, that we'll be able to commercialize that? I mean, we dig a mile into the earth in whatever part of the planet, and we dig up old fossilized dinosaurs for fuel, and then transport that across the world. Couldn't we accomplish something similar with ocean water and desalination? I know it's energy intensive, and it's not the economics don't make sense yet. I think
Eventually it probably will.
That's what I think we can crack that. I gotta believe that we'll crack that. Like that would be something that would work.
Yeah, years and years ago, Bill Gates, I listened to an interview with him, and he was talking about the question I think they asked him was, well, what are the major concerns in the world?
Yep.
And the first one he said was water. The second one, I believe, was energy. Another one was population. But he's so true. He was so right on water.
Yeah,
no
for sure.
question about it. So,
And if private corporations can go in and get the rights to the water, then you got a whole nother problem.
if I've been following in the paper, the Colorado River,
Sure.
of course, drains from Colorado into California, and it's slowly drying up. And so now there was just a major agreement of the states that take that water to conserve, I think, about 3 million acre. Is that right? Acre feet? That's not right. 3 million acre feet.
Oh, really? Okay.
Water.
I didn't know that.
And but that helps, but it doesn't solve the problem. So, and the only problem I can see is it has to be more conservation. But the big thing is agriculture, because that water is needed for food.
Of course, yeah.
For food. And
What was it? One avocado on your table represents 40 gallons of water.
Better be careful. I don't. Your mom, the amount of avocado she eats, I
Yeah.
don't know.
Well, we like. I mean, I don't know anybody that doesn't like avocados.
That's
maybe,
right. Yeah.
Maybe Callie. But yeah, you're right. So I mean, obviously the world is what, 70% ocean. Yeah,
Something like that. Yeah.
I got to think that we'll figure that.
Oh yeah. I mean,
Maybe not. Maybe we will.
no. I mean, with renewables, particularly with wind, you can use that electricity to run desalination plants and so forth. So you can, of course, hydrogen. You can use nuclear, or you can use renewables to generate electricity, to produce hydrogen, electrolysis of water. In our economy, I mean, part of I won't live to see this, but I believe a certain part of our economy will be using hydrogen, and I don't see how with airplanes, if you, I mean, right now they run on kerosene or aviation fuel, and you're not going to have and if you want to replace that, it's going to have to be some kind of a combustible. So hydrogen would
Right.
be
Unless
bill.
we crack the alien technology.
Well, there we go. Yeah.
Maybe that's why there's this slow burn of UFO and UAP and whatever they're going to call it next, information that is warming up the public, because we do have some advanced technology that we have access to, but it's obviously alien, right? Where you can travel without the combustible need or combustible engines. It's not it's an anti-gravity machine of some sort, right? I don't know. That'd be fun to.
That'd be interesting.
That'd be fun to see. Yeah. I do. Whenever you have some free time, if you want to look up some Bob Lazar interviews, I'll send you a link or two. He talks at length, and he's a smart guy. He's not.
Yeah.
He's not. He's not some goofball. And he's just one person out of what now has bubbled up all the way through, high-level military officials testifying under oath to Congress or whatever the backdoor committees were that are asking the right questions, and he's trying to be the whistleblower to just tell us the truth of what we know. This goes down a whole, obviously a whole rabbit hole. When we were in Roswell, New Mexico, as a family, we went to the enjoyed the whole alien museum there.
I would do the same thing.
Yeah, it was fun. But in that museum, there are quotes, from several decades of high-ranking officials confirming the existence or exclaiming that they believed into it, and they believe it because they've seen it, type of quote, right? I mean, Dwight Eisenhower was one of the quotes. Right, high-ranking military officials from other countries around the world. This is since the 1940s. So it'd be interesting. I'd say more than interesting. It'd be the greatest discovery of our version of civilization. There's definitely those that believe we're a reset. Our current civilization today was reset at the end of the previous ice age. So then you go back, human history. I don't know if have you followed this in the news recently, but things just continue to go further and further back in terms of how long humans have been around. Have you followed this at all?
Not that much.
So conventional wisdom growing up, or conventional teachings, was, some we've been around. Our modern form of human, intelligence and capability has been around about 6,000 years, whatever that is, right? Something like that. Obviously, that's changed. Now it's hundreds of thousands of years, and so there's a main branch of this is something I want to continue to read up on and learn more about, because it's super interesting, and a lot of it makes sense. Like it's pieces of the puzzle that you didn't even know were missing, that once you learn a bit make a lot of sense. But if you think of what we've accomplished in the past couple hundred years, and if humans have been around for hundreds of thousands of years, then human civilizations potentially have just been reset by major cataclysms, right? At the end of the last ice age, which was roughly 12,000 years ago, there's a lot of evidence to suggest we were far more connected across the globe than people are willing to investigate further or to admit, right? The influence of ancient Africa and South America, North America, throughout Asia there's some very strong connections in religious beliefs, in language, in writing, in architecture. The technologies were there potentially, but at the end of the last ice age, this is widely accepted, to my knowledge, that there were several impacts of meteors. And at the ice age, you're talking, the northern hemisphere was largely covered by thick sheets of ice, a couple miles deep. And when they're getting hit by meteors, there was a rapid sea rise over just a short period of time of 400 feet. Sea levels rose 400 feet in a short period of time, completely changing things. And if you think of today, where are the major population centers, generally speaking, around the globe? Close to the coast, right? And so what a lot of these theories are stating, and a lot of these arguments that make a lot of sense, is that we were far more advanced and far more connected as a civilization than people even think to believe or know of today. And so there's a whole arm of folks that are going and investigating it from that angle and asking a whole lot of questions. And there's a lot of information to suggest it. Not just, archaeological evidence, scientific evidence, but all the stuff on just similar myths and stories that are permeated throughout these ancient cultures. Not just, since we grew up here, we have a Christian background. We have the myths of the flood and the Bible, Noah's Ark and stuff, but you've got Epic of Gilgamesh. You've got every ancient culture. If you follow their tradition back far enough, there's ancient floods. That's just one similarity. But this is stuff I want to continue to learn about, because it's very intriguing, but it's going further and further back, and it's completely changing our perception. And I don't even know how we got onto this topic. But basically, humans have been around. Our level of understanding, our capability of humans have been around far, far longer than what people tend to believe.
Yeah.
So
Well, and I've seen articles out there where there was one in the paper here just, I think, last week, but they were talking about a group of about 300,000 years ago. Now they found
there you go.
that there was a link.
So you are reading up on it. Yeah.
A little bit.
There you go.
But it's hard to keep track of everything.
Yeah, it is hard.
But anyway, they were leaking, very similar to the descendants of what they think Homo sapiens we came from. But this group was, they think there were some links there, and it caught some of the scientists or some of the experts off guard. This particular group of people, the brains weren't quite as large as, anyway, I don't remember now, but a lot of things are finding. I mean, they're still they're still finding
Of course.
artifacts. They're still looking. And
Of course.
So the knowledge just will continue to grow a little bit.
I
So
hope that artificial intelligence can somehow connect some of the dots for
It
us,
could be.
and that we can explain a little bit more. But what I find most interesting, or where if I were to all of a sudden receive a giant grant and have all kinds of time on my hands and have the resources to do so, I'd like to go back to where we believe our civilization was centered around, which is, ancient Africa, Mesopotamia area. And I would like to go into those areas and talk to local people, learn their language, whatever I have to do in order to actually learn their stories and their past. Because it's upsetting and concerning. It's frankly it's a little maddening when you realize how much of our version of history has just been filtered through what we'd prefer it to be, and who we actually want to credit the knowledge or the discoveries to. It wasn't always the people that we believe discovered, what from mathematics to astronomy, etc. Right? It's not. We got that stuff from other cultures also that we just don't credit, and that's unfortunate.
That could be very true. That could be very true.
So the ancient Greeks actually put it in writing. Hey, we got our math from Egypt. We love Egypt, basically. You can go in, and they were open about it. Somewhere in the 1700s, that narrative changed, and now it's we'll save that for a future episode.
Yeah.
So I'll do some more digging on there. What I do want to do, Dad, is I want to have as I continue to advance here, I'll have a little bit more screen sharing capability. We can discover and use more resources here. I just haven't advanced the podcast setup quite.
Yeah, you encouraged me to look at the pyramids and
Yeah.
Giza and so forth, and I did do some reading on that. But
What did you think? So there's a theory that the pyramids were essentially ancient power plants.
yeah, I'm skeptical a lot of that. But in terms of, to me, it's more probable that the Egyptians obviously were smart.
Oh yeah.
And when you build those pyramids and you look at the size of those blocks they had to cut, the limestone and granite,
Yep.
and how they built those, limestone's is easier to cut obviously than granite, but the limestone was just put on the surfaces and polished. So when one of those pyramids, the big one in Giza, was finished, that must have been quite a sight to see, because
Yep.
it was all polished and so forth. But I still think that the Egyptians, they probably used models, small models, to do a lot of the work. They obviously had some knowledge of trigonometry. They had a lot of knowledge of applying math and so forth. Now, how they built those and whether they were able to use ropes
I think it was the blocks themselves. I don't know about the granite, because there was there's chambers within the
Yes,
within the
that's true.
pyramids,
That's true.
and there's blocks of granite within those chambers that are 70 tons
Yeah,
each.
the granite's that's true. And the granite they used the granite for support columns.
Okay.
My understanding.
Okay.
And then but I would have, if you go back in time, now that'd be a good place to go back in time to see how
To see how they did it. So I think I recently came across. I'll have to redig this, but there was a guy in the early '80s who basically went and mixed in large scale quantities limestone. Created the limestone blocks and showed how you can mix as you build to the specifications, because he did some studies on the limestone from the pyramids, and he found inconsistencies to natural limestone, right? Where there's like, air bubbles and hair particles and so forth within the mixture of the limestone of the pyramids, suggesting that it wasn't natural, that it was mixed. And so he went and created it and showed with, just primitive capabilities how you could mix that and pour it and set it, and within, a couple of days it hardens, and then it appears like natural limestone. So that would explain a whole lot. And apparently he cracked that code in 1983. But it doesn't explain the granite beams that are,
Huge.
tens and tens of tons.
Yeah.
So that piece is still, not that the mystery has been solved by any means, but that would make a lot more sense because there's all these theories. Aliens came and helped build it, or what I believe the ancient civilizations, these lost technologies, were the knowledge that they had were technologies that we don't even think of today. Like we just took a different technological path. It's more along the lines of harnessing nature's elements in the capabilities. And so when it comes, this is a whole Tesla piece, but what's Tesla's quote? Where if you want to understand the universe, think in terms of vibration, and like that's what everything is. And so if you can harness the right tone in vibration for the elements, there's ways to levitate material. And I believe that it would explain a lot if they were able to understand that. And, hopefully we can discover that and show it. But I'll do a little bit more reading on that for our next podcast as well.
I had a good friend of mine. He gave one of the lectures that I coordinated there when I was at Black and Beach, and Ken Carlson was his name, and he was an expert on coal, and the formation of coal and so forth. And but I loved his lectures because one of the things he showed was a big headlines from a paper back, I don't know, late 1800s, early 19, somewhere in there, and this top-noted scientist, he said, "We're done. We've discovered everything. Okay, there's nothing more to discover."
Nice.
Okay, and that got a laugh out of everybody in
I'm
the
sure.
class. But but that was the thinking at the time on some people. But obviously, we're still discovering. We're still learning
constantly.
And Lord only knows where it'll be 100 years from now.
Well, one thing that's unfortunate is now the information age is now changed dramatically into the disinformation and misinformation age.
True. That is
now
true.
we're in the age of artificial intelligence, and it's very difficult to know what you're even seeing or hearing, if that's even actual stuff that happened, right? It's all I don't know how at some point you're going to be able to distinguish between actual reality and virtual reality.
It'll be. Yeah, I'd hate to be an English professor now in college,
grading papers,
grading reports and stuff like that. Although, for me, I did my share of that when I was teaching in university, and you can spot at that time. You could spot in many cases plagiarism. You could spot it, but now with all the other, with Snapchat or whatever they call that.
No, there's Chat GPT.
Yeah.
Okay. Snapchat is a different, whole
that's
different
true.
application.
That's true.
Right,
yeah,
right.
That's true. It is. It is. But anyway, with artificial intelligence now, it's going to be harder.
So,
but not impossible.
I read where, and this I haven't. I read the headlines. I think on the plane yesterday. University of Kansas has developed a capability to detect artificial intelligence-driven material with 99% accuracy. That's super recent, within the past couple of days. Which, if that's true, then there's a giant market for that discovery.
That's true.
Especially in education.
Yes.
Or a whole bunch of else. But I think that's a fun topic that we can discuss. But that was a fun podcast, Dad. We should do this more often. We should do it.
That's fun. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
All right. Well,
I enjoyed it.
We will. Thanks for listening. We didn't even get into your book, your recently released book. You're on your tour.
Well, I'm on my tour.
On your tour for your
that book was published back in 1994, I think, somewhere right in there.
I remember you
there
writing.
There was a huge number of people that worked on that book at Black and Beach. Huge number. We're going to
give you full credit. We'll give you full credit.
No, don't do that, please. Don't. Don't do that.
We're going to get into engineering, economics, thermodynamics. Limestone handling. We'll get into that. Combustion process, steam turbine generators. We'll dive deep into this thing next time. All right. Well, thanks for coming over, Dad.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me.
All right.